Didn't we just leave this party? It's Pocket Bowling on Game Boy Works Color Episode 4. Because Game Boy served as the point of origin for both Virtual Boy and Game Boy Color, there ended up being a lot of crossover and repetition between the three platforms. I mean, in the first 3 episodes of the Game Boy Works Color series, we've already seen both a Tetris game and a Super Mario Land sequel, franchises that had appeared on both Game Boy and Virtual Boy as well. And now we're going for 3 with Pocket Bowling. Yes, it's another Athena-developed bowling title for a Nintendo portable system. It almost seems destined at this point. Game Boy had World Bowling, while Virtual Boy had Virtual Bowling. Pocket Bowling feels like an attempt to split the difference. Though happily it hews much closer to the excellent Virtual Boy release than to the older Game Boy title. I lamented Virtual Bowling's inaccessibility to the average human being due to both its profound rarity and its restriction to an unloved and hard-to-maintain game system. The good news is that just a month after that retrospective, we already have Athena's attempt to rectify the older game's failings. Pocket Bowling brings the mechanics and design of Virtual Bowling to a far more accessible platform. Athena was taking no chances here. Not only did Pocket Bowling come to the wildly popular Game Boy Color, it shipped for the system 2 days after the platform's Japanese launch, rather than bringing up the ragged end of its life. And unlike Virtual Bowling, it also came to the West, courtesy of Jalico. Of course, Pocket Bowling is not a perfect one-to-one analog for Virtual Bowling. As we saw with Wario Land, the shift back down to a lower resolution platform with an 8-bit processor required certain technical compromises. In this case, that means the act of bowling feels less precise than it did on the spacious, widescreen Virtual Boy. With fewer pixels available to define the lane and the pins, each roll ends up having a more approximate feel than it did in Virtual Bowling, while the pins slide around less convincingly. And obviously there's no 3D visualization effect on Game Boy Color. Yet these are all superficial aesthetic issues, and at its heart, Pocket Bowling is a legitimately respectable take on the sport, given the boundaries of the platform. Athena more or less transplanted the core mechanics of Virtual Bowling onto Game Boy Color here, adding a few more options in the process to make up for the lack of visual pizzazz. For starters, you now have half a dozen different bowlers to choose from, rather than merely 2. While you do have a couple of your standard, normal-looking male and female bowlers to work with, Pocket Bowling also gives you some total weirdos as well. And there's more to choosing a character than simple aesthetic preferences. Each bowler has his or her, or its, own stats across 2 categories: strength and technique. These elements were present in Virtual Bowling, but they were user-determined and had no connection to the player's character choice. Here, each bowler has predetermined stats, so your pick of avatar also serves to define your preferred specialization. Strength-focused bowlers use heavier balls which drift less as they roll, but their bowling action meters move quickly and require precise timing for accuracy. Tech-focused bowlers use lighter balls that tend to be unreliable unless you apply full power, but the trade-off is that their action meters move slowly, making it far easier to roll exactly as you want. Generally speaking, a strength-focused bowler has an easier time hitting the pins head-on, but is more likely to end up with a split, while a tech-focused bowler has a harder time hitting strikes, but can much more effectively pick up spares. The act of bowling here makes use of exactly the same meters seen in Virtual Boy, which is great. It's a 3-step process that allows you to set spin and strength with a quick succession of button presses. First, you define your spin by pressing the button as a cursor rotates laterally around the ball. Then, you activate a second meter twice to set the extension of your rolling arm and the power of your roll. It's quick, nicely animated, and has a great feel. There's really not much to a video bowling game, but Athena hit on a great formula with Virtual Bowling, and it's nice to see that formula revisited in a cheaper, more accessible form with Pocket Bowling. This is hardly a system seller, but Pocket Bowling does help reinforce the Nintendo portable continuity that existed between Game Boy, Virtual Boy, and Game Boy Color. Virtual Boy may have originally been intended as Game Boy's true successor, but in the end, that distinction ended up going to Nintendo's mulligan here. A less capable and less unique system, perhaps, but one that better fit the needs and desires of the market. Meanwhile, over on the Japan exclusive side of things, Japanese players saw the 6th Game Boy Color compatible release in Honkaku Shougi, Shougi Ou, or full-size Shougi, Shougi King. Shougi, of course, is Japan's venerable ancestor to, or at least variant on, chess. played with 5-sided tiles and driven by its own complex set of rules that are just different enough from Western chess to be infuriating. I won't pretend to be an expert or even knowledgeable about Shougi. I covered the basic game several years ago in the creatively named Shougi for Game Boy, and I haven't become any more practiced with it since then. However, Shougi Ou does offer a pretty decent baseline comparison against the older game. Pony Canyon's take on the traditional pastime was pretty rocky, from its glacial CPU action to its almost indecipherable pieces. Despite being backward compatible with original Game Boy hardware, meaning it runs on the same processor and has the same graphical resolution, Shougi Ou fares a lot better on this hardware than the last Shougi title we examined. A big part of its success comes from the way developer Warashi made smarter use of the limited screen resolution. Rather than wasting precious screen real estate on tile borders and a score display column, Shougi Ou basically uses every pixel of the Game Boy Color's 160 by 144 resolution to depict pieces. This makes for a display that resembles a proper board much less, but turns out to be a whole heck of a lot more legible. This is important because Shougi distinguishes the function of its pieces differently than Western chess does. The players don't even use their own separate colors. Although the pieces share many similar features and obey similar rules, all pieces on a Shougi board look identical. They're simple squares with one side peaked to indicate the direction it's facing. Rather than appearing as varied silhouettes, Shougi pieces are instead defined by the kanji pictogram they bear. Kanji characters can be pretty complex, so trying to squeeze those into pieces on a 9x9 board at Game Boy's resolution is a real challenge. Shougi Ou pulls it off though, by making its pieces as large as possible. It's not a pretty looking game, but it's functional, which is more important. Warashi even made use of the system's 9:10 ratio by using the extra 8 pixels on either side of the screen as a holding pin for captured pieces. The pieces can't be displayed in their entirety in so narrow a space, but you can see half of each piece, which is sufficient to allow you to tell the inscribed kanji on each piece apart. It's a pretty clever solution. And despite its utterly plain appearance, Shougi Ou does put the Game Boy Color's primary feature to good use. When you promote a Shougi piece, you flip it over to reveal a kanji that denotes its new role written on the back of the piece, in red. That didn't read on original Game Boy, but here you get actual red. Weirdly, the Sega Game Gear had plenty of Mahjong games, but never Shougi, making Shougi Ou the first example I can find of a color Shougi title designed for a portable system. I don't know that the world was clamoring for such a thing, but here it is. Shougi Ou offers a few different modes, including standard match play versus another person or the computer, as well as a challenge mode in which players are presented with a specific gameplay scenario and need to resolve it victoriously. It's about all you could ask for in a 1998 vintage portable Shougi game, really, which admittedly isn't probably all that much. As for developer Warashi, they made a few games of this ilk, but the company is probably best known for working at the opposite end of the gaming spectrum, on blazing fast shoot-'em-ups. Warashi was behind legendary Saturn shooter Shenryu, and later went on to create Trigger Heart Exelica. The company has been defunct for a decade at this point, their final title being the Japanese release of Major League Eating for Wii. Anyway, as you can imagine, Shougi Ou never saw release outside of Japan. Next on Game Boy Works Color, Nintendo's cutting-edge color handheld gets a boost by looking back to its ancient monochrome roots.